Good evening and welcome.
Okay.
Good evening. Hey, Ann. Welcome to the
Hey.
After Hours show. This is Joe in Norway. I'll be your cook this evening, and I'm joined by Ann Lee, a retired college professor and a community member at the Daily Coast. They're a member of the National Council of Independent Scholars and is a contributor to the book, The Political Economy of Art, Making the Nation of Culture. Evening.
Hey there. What's for
Well,
supper?
Oh, I've been practicing my allergic menus. So we've got the family coming soon, and uh, it's a couple of what do you call them in the spokes? A couple sticks in the spokes. We've got no gluten, no dairy, I believe no egg, and a few other things. But I've also
Challenging.
been I've also been making a lot of dumplings. And I'm really on a dumpling kick. So that's a real problem without the wheat flour there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I thought we'll experiment with instead of making gnocchi or knedle or the Eastern European Czech style dumplings with flour or wheat flour. I'm going to make it with potato and masa harina, corn or
Cool.
grits. These are instant corn grits, basically. They're kind of popular brand, Palm. With this is not like the Mexican. This is the South American style for making arepas. So
Hmm.
it's basically pre-steamed, pre-ground, instant cornmeal. Cornmeal dumplings give me strength, y'all. As Roots Maneuver like to say.
All right.
So we'll see how that works. We're either going to steam them or we're going to boil them. After I've got some pre-cooked potatoes to rice with our handy dandy ricer. Uh, I'm going to make uh, roast cocoa bean stew soup paste something or other for them to sit on. I've got a barely with us baby zucchini. So seen better times, poor little feller. But we'll sear that. We'll do something to fix that one up. Maybe a little salsa or something to go with it. And we've got our lovely cilantro. So the dumplings, we're going to put cornstarch, potatoes, cornmeal, maybe a little nutmeg, muscat. Not sure. We'll see how it goes. And
Okay.
it might take me a while, so please take your time.
Now, I will.
I mean,
The thing.
unless it's been an uneventful week.
Ah, it's been a
Just
busy week. A
well,
very
did
busy
you?
week.
I mean, before you get into the U.S. centric news, I got a little Euro trash news for you. I don't. Are you sitting
Cool.
down? Or are you
I am.
relaxed?
I
So,
am.
Israel has been cleared to participate in the Eurovision Song Contest.
All right.
Yet again, in fact, well, Spain, Ireland, and the Netherlands and Slovenia so far have announced that they'll boycott Eurovision.
All
I
right.
assume there'll be more to. Hopefully, there'll be more to come. Interestingly, uh, Germany said that the chancellor said that they would cancel Germany's participation if Israel was not permitted to participate. World's
Ah,
upside down.
indeed. Indeed.
Well, that's been your Euro trash news. I'll commence the cooking.
All righty. Yeah, Eurovision. Keep forgetting. It's the season is coming.
More blood and glitter.
And that's pretty much it.
Oh, the
It
beans.
has
I forgot to mention the beans. I had them soaking for about eight
nice.
hours or so. So I'm
What
going
type
to
of
cook
beans
them.
are these?
These are rose cocoa, which I always thought were roseco, but the rose cocoa beans. This is what they look like when they're dried.
Okay.
They're kind of like pinto beans, more or less. Not as they're longer and skinnier, but they get pretty chubby when they get fully cooked, and
Okay.
similar flavor profile. So if they weren't soaked under pressure, they'll take about 55 minutes.
Mm.
Soaked, they should take about 18. If you want them creamy, it's going to take more like 25 minutes, but we don't have that long, so we'll see how it goes. I gotta I gotta get these on right now.
All right. Well, busy week, yes. To keep you up to date, all kinds of things to celebrate. The FIFA, the overlords of soccer or football in the world, decided that they would give Trump a participation trophy. So they had a little event. This is the drawing of it's the draws. That is the um, pulling at random the correlations of who's going to play whom in the World Cup, since the United States, is doing the World Cup. And of course, Trump is trying to make this all about him, of course. And of course, he stole the uh, Club Cup trophy. I mean, he just stole it. He like wouldn't give it back, and they had to give another one, a replica, to the actual team that won that competition. So they decided they'd be preemptive about it, and they gave him a peace prize. They call it a peace prize, and they awarded it to him today. They gave him a little gold medal. It's so cute. And this was at the Kennedy Center. And,
I have to say,
you know,
it was a little tackier than Tim Apple's golden, elegant gold sculpture that they came with bended knee to him on.
everyone has to
But
give gifts to the king. The
yeah,
king needs to get his little
oh,
stuff. Terrible.
it's ridiculous.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just totally ridiculous. But anyway,
Oh, we
Trump.
got one thing on the beans. Sorry, we can
Go ahead.
throw in our no salt. We won't put any salt in because it makes it more difficult to. It takes longer for them to
Manipulate.
get tender. But you
Mm.
can throw in aromatics like onion. I usually put
Uh,
half an onion, garlic. You put spices in, whatever. We'll just do garlic for now. And always be sure to put the squeeze of or tablespoon of olive oil, or not olive oil,
uh,
doesn't matter what oil you're using. Um, some oil so that when the beans froth up, the fat cuts the bubbles, and it
uh,
doesn't end up clogging the holes, the air
the
holes.
vents.
Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. I do actually have a pressure cooker. I just never use it.
Mm.
Anyway, so Trump got his little trophy, and he's just a game show host. It is so frighteningly stupid. But anyway, on other fronts, Trump fired or amicably parted from his initial architect for the ballroom, the big ballroom wing, the big box store that's going to be tacked onto the White House, and hired another. These are kind of hack architects, with all due respect. Well, I don't have any standing there, so these guys are hacks. The other one was McCreary was a hack in religious and school architecture. The new one is a hack in apartment buildings. So it's just. I think he's done more than apartment buildings. He's done a couple of other interesting kind of buildings, but for the most part, they're hack architects. It's not like he would pick a high style architect, someone who would collide with Trump's ego. So that's kind of where we are now, uh, which is interesting because you have to sort of start over again in terms of there are no plans. There are no plans for this stupid thing. So, it's sort of totally ass backwards and random in many ways. And I have speculated that maybe we won't even get a East Wing of any kind, simply because it'll get held up by the usual Trumpian idiocy, which happens with every one of his buildings, actually. There's usually delays, fights with contractors. He stiffs suppliers. That is what it is. So that's less important. The more important things are there's a brand new 33-page document for um, the national security strategy of the United States that the White House has put out. It's essentially a screed of it reads like a campaign speech, and it's got all the usual things in it. It lacks
Oh,
history, certainly, and it is. So I seized upon the fact that Trump is trying to make a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. So he was at um, he would never mention Monroe Doctrine before. Now he is starting to embrace it. Now, the reality, of course, is that all the speechwriters did, because Trump doesn't know what the Monroe Doctrine is. I mean, he sort of knows, but the document itself uh, reads pretty much like a campaign speech. It celebrates the end of woke in the military, um, radical gender ideology, whatever. Uh, that the victory over that has placed the United States in a unique position to be essentially uh, what really is the Teddy Roosevelt corollary to Monroe Doctrine. For those who don't know what the Teddy Roosevelt corollary is, it rationalizes in further detail, and we sort of know this from Teddy Roosevelt's own history. It has rationalizes the kind of colonial imperialism that the United States is so famous for.
the
uh,
Philippines, Cuba,
he's trying to
that type of
offset.
behavior. Mm.
Yeah, well, he's offsetting the current kerfuffle, which is the revelations that the the kind of joy that he has, both he, Trump, and Hegspeth, have in killing people, and where you see the video from overhead and uh, something gets blown up, and the problem, of course, is that it's different than blowing up people on land. And blowing people up at sea, once you get them in the water and you've sort of taken their boat away from them, or you know, disabled them or neutralized them, you sort of are responsible for them. You have to actually. There's a whole thing about the collectivity of the sea that you actually help other people out, distress, etc. But instead, on the first night of all of this uh, exploding or um, attacking so-called drug boats. They're not really drug boats. I mean, I think they're boats ferrying things back and forth at high speed, and it could be drugs, to Trinidad. It's not going to the United States. It might go to the United States, but that's sort of the long way to do it. But in terms of smuggling, so and of course they were running out of boats to blow up, so they blew up ones, and they had the U.S. Navy attack similar boats on the Pacific side of South America and or Central America, and so they killed a bunch of people there. The current toll at the present moment is about 83 people dead,
This
but
is the
two
this
of
is
them,
the peace guy. This is the peace guy, right? Peace
yeah,
guy is enjoying killing people.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, his Peace Prize. I mean, the contradictions are so weird. The you know uh, he's celebrating killing people and at the same time trying to get this Nobel Peace Prize. And I think FIFA, the football organization, is hoping that maybe he'll just calm down a little bit more if we give him another gold trophy. Um, I think that's very short-sighted, but needless to say. So what we have in this national security strategy document is essentially what he's done in these other things. His speechwriters, whether it's and other functionaries, Stephen Miller, etc., are writing all the usual things that he wants to do, and that appear usually in his speeches. But he's not giving any speeches anymore. He rarely goes out of the White House. There was some information and probably a rumor, but interesting conclusion that some people have figured out or have speculated that the reason why he has all that right hand bruising, their bruises appear on his right hand, very dark bruises, and they come from putting drugs in him. And the drug they figured out was an Alzheimer drug.
Hmm.
That's what they think it is, because some of the side effects are what are causing him to fall asleep. For example, in the middle of me, he drops out like a light in meetings, and so dozy Donald is kind of. I mean, the fact is, he comes out and celebrates all this other stuff, and he's got Hegspeth and all the usual. The Congress is actually back in session, and they dragged in the admiral who's in charge of special forces and special operations and or joint operations, and uh, tried to ask him, you know, who really gave the order to kill these two survivors of the particular video in question, which is from September 2nd. My understanding is there were 8 or 11 people on the boat. Uh, all the others got killed. There were 2 people hanging on to a boat that was sort of overturned, and the claim is they were trying to right the boat, flip it back over, and so therefore they were more of a threat or something. There's all this sort of baffle gap that's going on around this. So, needless to say, there's plausible deniability for uh, Hegseth and Trump, because they weren't there; they were just watching it. Although our Secretary of Defense decided that he would only watch the first part and not the second strike. There was a second military strike, which comes under the rules or the orders for the admiral, Admiral Bradley, who was in a closed session with a variety of the security folks in Congress, and the Democrats came out and said, "Well, it's pretty awful," and then the Republicans came out and said, "Oh, I don't see anything wrong with that." And so I think you have this kind of disinformational element that's going on here. Pretty much the general consensus is, because we haven't seen the actual video itself of them killing these 2 guys. Now, there are plenty of them if you go on the internet for other things. I mean, daily, there's daily reporting on Telegram, for example. If you want to watch people die, you can find people dying, getting blown up or shot or whatever. But this one in particular is kind of, egregious because there are actually rules for saving people who have been, thrown in the water, and which would be dissimilar if this were on the land. You know, there would be less accountability. So that's kind of what's going on, and much hay is being made. Frankly, uh, you know, uh, Trump has said, "Well, we'll show all the video," but no one's shown all the video. So this is typical. This is just like the Epstein matter, and in parallel to this, to keep Epstein in the Epstein information in the mix. There was a 30-day. It's down to what, 15 or 20 days uh, for the transfer of Department of Justice files on Epstein to Congress, and of course, there's going to be other kinds of delays and sandbagging and stonewalling. That's all happening already. It's interesting what kind of information will get transferred, considering that uh, there's a ton of redactions, 1,600 mentions of Trump, and some of them obviously pretty mundane, but there are some that are probably pretty serious, especially ones that might have to do with quote unquote sex. And to make that more, well, lascivious or enticing today, uh, some of the people in Congress who had some of the data already released a photo of a dental chair, and apparently Epstein had a room at both on the island and in Florida in Palm Beach, and these are essentially standard dental chairs, where you recline and there's an overhead light. Um, and his girlfriend or his paramour for about 15 years, and in fact, she was the last one to ever see. And one wonders whether there was any surveillance of the room in which they met. Um, anyway, she was the last one to see him alive, needless to say. And she's a dentist from Belarus. Uh, with, I mean, she is a dentist. Epstein supported her through dental school. Now, the point is, though, that it was less about dental work and more about access to drugs, or at least that's what some people are saying. And the other thing is, and the more creepy element of this is the photos have these little rooms with the dental chairs, um, decorated with masks on the wall, and they're not death masks. They look more like carnival masks of one kind or another. I think they're all male in that particular sense, and if you want to describe them as gendered, and they're hanging on the wall, and not at random, but in a kind of orientation. And so, you can speculate about what went on. My assumption is that relative to um, whatever lascivious activity was going on at either Palm Beach or on the island, um, some people got to have masks when they were doing whatever they were doing. And so there's an anonymity. I'm sure uh, the the children or the the women who are trafficked don't get the masks. This is all the people in charge get masks. So anyway, that's kind of that's kind of totally offset the fact that people got blown up on September 2nd. So that's all there. If you want to go to the internet, you can see all this kind of stuff, and it's troubling to say the least. So I put up a thing speculating or reviving the fact that Trump's own kind of cruelty or brutality sense of dominance or domination from either blowing people up or hurting people, and which has been transferred all the way through ICE and Border Patrol and all those folks, because there's just a lot of that going on now. Much of it is more mundane or banal. That is, if you're being accosted by masked guys who might be, but they're masked and they don't really identify themselves, um, they're tapping on the window of your car, they pull you over, you're probably better off, just to save the money or the hassle, is to roll your window down and be nice to them and to interact with them rather than let them smash your windows up, because that seems to be the current kind of procedure, is smash and grab, throw people to the ground. They showed one from Florida, Key Largo, Florida, where a woman who was going to work, and her boyfriend, who is undocumented, it's his car. So the car gets pulled over, she gets dragged out, and they just, they manhandle her, throw her to the ground. There's four big guys and one moderately small woman. In fact, one of them picks her up, literally. And so she gets brutalized, traumatized, and then they let her go, right? Because who they really wanted was, of course, the boyfriend. Um, but you can see that how weirdly random and stupid these things are, and this is happening everywhere. Needless to say, this is happening in places where you might not expect it. For example, in the whole Somali thing, Trump a couple of days ago got off on a little rant uh, in the White House. He was being questioned by reporters, so to speak, and he got off on a little rant about how Somalis were garbage people. Somalia was, a hellhole. He didn't go fully profane on it, but essentially it was just him at a racist screed. He wants to throw them out of the country, even though a significant number of Somalis in Minnesota voted for Trump in the election. And I think hopefully they've regretted this particular activity, because ICE got sent to Minneapolis and they're running around trying to find Somalis. The fact is, though, that about 80 to 90% of Somalis in the United States are citizens, either born here or naturalized. All of their paperwork is in order. So messing with them in reality is different than sort of messing Trump sort of yammering and attacking Ilhan Omar for the fact that she's just Somalian, and she's sort of the lightning rod for hate, mainly because she's a woman, she's of color, she's from Africa, all those things are there, and she's a member of the squad. All of those things are there. It's just scapegoating and racism. I mean, it got to the racism part. So that's been kind of going on. People being dragged out of cars, including Somalis. And it gave one an opportunity to look at the proportion of folks from different places in the United States. And Minnesota does have a significant number of Somalis. The rest are kind of scattered about, but in Washington State, um, around D.C. for some reason, and whatever. Similarly for Afghans in the United States, and there was the Afghan thing was, of course, we had looked at last week, that traumatized, I think with PTSD, seemed really in bad mental distress. He killed two National Guardsmen or killed one National Guardsman, and the other is in critical condition in Washington D.C. And he had facts are coming out. I mean, the guy was actually a child soldier. I think he was recruited at 15. He worked for a group supported by the CIA. And unfortunately, they were doing essentially what ICE does. You can run around and intimidate people and do work of one kind or another, dry or wet. And so apparently this guy was, in pretty bad shape that even though he had gotten, uh, uh, a whole variety of support within the United States and had under Trump, that is in April, was given asylum. So they didn't do anything else. And of course, the accusations fly back and forth. And why wasn't he helped more? He seemed to have some serious issues about holding a job and depressive and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so he's wounded and in the hospital as well. So that's kind of where that is. But that gets back to the Somali issue because at random, Trump brought up Somalia. They were talking about the Afghan killer, but somehow Trump in his little brain decided that he would talk about Somalis, and so that got off on a reel. That's where the rant comes from. It's where his brain sort of wandered around and then found things that he hated, and so they did blurt out stuff that actually is more as racist as he usually gets. And it's unfortunate to say usual, but the fact of the matter is he hasn't really changed much. His sense of equality or inequality is or respect for intersectional folks is sort of not there. Now, the irony, of course, is from one perspective, you're going to claim that, well, the Somalis are crooks, and there is a situation where money laundering has occurred. But the fact of the matter is, and we know that this is the sort of the standard operating procedure for the right, is that they'll accuse others, they will project others what they're doing. So complaining about Somali money laundering sort of takes away. It's a certain way in which you defend something. It is a certain type of defense where you get closer as opposed to running away from a particular idea. So you sort of double down on talking about Somali money laundering, whereas uh, uh, Jeffrey Epstein's money laundering is forgotten in the discourse. It's a very primitive kind of way of approaching the problem, and they always go to it. Trump inevitably uses some sort of projected strategy. So anyway, that was what was happening, accusing the Somalis of all being crooks, and they aren't. But it's clear that there is some issues that public funds may have been engaged with that, so that allows Trump and Republicans to attack the Governor Walz of Minnesota, who's going to come up for election. But the reality is, of course, they're trying to produce a scandal of some kind within Minnesota, and it's all political in that particular sense. It's really not about the Somalis. And the irony, of course, is that the Somalis, not unlike Arab populations in the U.S., they're actually quite conservative. They don't agree with intersectional agendas about LGBTQ stuff, and that's why certain factions of them, certain groups within those populations, are actually quite conservative. And so what has come up is this idea that there are a fair number of Somalis who voted for Trump. And hopefully they sort of recognize how problematic that might be, that being conservative from your religious point of view and cultural point of view um, is only one part of being an American in a kind of pluralistic society, which we still are until certain other things happen. So that's happening.
Well,
How's it going, Joe?
our little babies are cooking
Ooh,
up real nice. Oh,
cool.
did I lose the wrong direction? Oh, and am I? There.
Looks fine.
Okay.
Overhead looks fine.
Oh, oh, looks like the beans are done. Hopefully.
All right. Well, there's other things. It's a very busy week. Trump says affordability is now a hoax. He treats it as though it's some alien, it's the usual Trumpian riff, is that he doesn't understand the term, and he sort of treats it as if it's some new concept or idea, when in fact, been there for um, the affordability question goes back decades. But anyway, uh, so now it's a hoax, whatever that means, and it's also used as to call it a hoax is to divert attention from the fact that inflation is up, unemployment is up. Uh, the government has hidden the jobs data, although it's kind of available if you hunt around for it, and all the usual things to just simply uh, convince you that up is in fact down, or left is in fact right, or whatever. That all of these misdirections are being thrown around, and it's kind of amusing on the one hand. On the other hand, it's just meant to divert attention, and diverting attention, of course, from Kash Patel, who it seems as though I think he's going to lose the whole battle on misuse of just misuse of government support. That is, that he's got a SWAT team of protecting his girlfriend, and that there's other minor idiocies about that. But as I pointed out, this is no different than what Ryan Zinke and Scott Pruitt were doing in the first Trump term, doing all kinds of stupid stuff. I mean, idiotic things like was it Pruitt or Zinke demanded that the flag of his agency be either up or down, depending on whether he, this is like the Queen in England or the King. The flag was up or down relative to his being in residence. So you can imagine how weird. I mean, aside from abusing transportation responsibilities, the use of the plane, or planes that are part of that support the agency, because it's really difficult to drive all over the place. It's actually much better to fly to things. You get more done if you have to be in physically in certain locations. So anyway, Patel is having issues. Every time he appears, he apparently doesn't know. He doesn't know stuff. He doesn't pay attention, or he doesn't isn't fully briefed, or he doesn't care. And it's always kind of embarrassing. You sort of feel for him. You go, well, maybe people just aren't telling him stuff because they don't like him. And on the one hand, it could be a race thing, or ethnic thing, or something else. But it's just stuff. It's just strange. So there's that. Today or yesterday we discovered who the pipe bomber is, from the January 6th insurrection. If you recall, that there were two viable pipe bombs planted at the RNC, the Republican National Committee headquarters, and the Democratic National headquarters in Washington, D.C. And in terms of that particular day or 24-hour period, the bomb could have gone off and injured Kamala Harris. So, needless to say, there's other stuff going on. Now, they got the guy, and one would expect him to be that we have a certain stereotypes in our minds. And in fact, people like me actually tried to figure out who the bomber was. And there are a whole bunch of candidates who are the right height, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the reality, of course, is that it was kind of a different person. A guy who's he's African American, I think, or he might actually be African. But the point is that that's irrelevant, because from an ideological point of view, and I think he's on the spectrum, he believes, as others on January 6th did, that Trump had won the 2020 election. So it's not a kind of an easy ideological fix, but they do, and they figured this out from circumstantial stuff, where he bought material. The receipts are there, I think, in terms of his construction of the bomb and etc. So they've assembled, I think, enough to indict him, etc. So there's that. That's news. Now, of course, um, people are trying to get spin on it, and so on the Republican side, they're trying to say, well, why didn't Biden do anything for and other people say, well, they collected all the information, but they didn't do anything with it, which is even more weird, considering the FBI. And then they made up other excuses. Well, Trump has shifted everything from counterterror to back over to immigration enforcement. So there's that. Um, it's really quite chaotic. Although, the reality is you can actually see what's going on there. It's you just have to sort of stay kind of calm about these things, not get too crazy about the fact that, the grand jury has refused at least once to, or the second time, to indict Tish James, the Attorney General of New York, and they're trying to indict her in Virginia because uh, whatever the residency question was fudged on mortgage applications, which is pretty much no different than like the Trump Treasury Secretary Scotty Bessent had exactly the same problem or a similar problem of multiple abodes, multiple mortgages, and simply a bureaucratic detail that lawyers would probably get angry about it, but it really doesn't rise to criminal behavior. But that's where Trump is going in his little retribution tour, where he's trying to get back at people who he thinks have wronged him. Of course, Tish James did, in the sense that he got he's a felon. Trump is a felon because he was guilty. He just hasn't been fully charged, and I think the second his tenure as president ends, he's going to go to jail uh, uh, for at least part of this. In the civil fraud thing that goes over many years of the Trump would inflate or deflate values in order to get around taxes. That's the one suit there that went up to $500 million, but the subsequent thing is that it's been bargained down to zero, but it doesn't change it. He's not innocent. He's still a felon, or he's still guilty of that. And then there are the other felonious charges related to Stormy Daniels, etc., which the only way you can get rid of that is if the New York parole uh, parole board um, uh, grants him a pardon. The governor could have some effect on that, I think, in New York, but I think there's a much more complicated process to get pardons through. But ultimately, Trump would love to sort of erase all of these things, even though I think just to deal with reality, um, he's still the criminal. He's still a felon. He's still all those other things, and all this lawfare only reveals that he's just more guilty of all of these things. So that's there. And there's similar monkey business going on in the that I'm going to write about tonight. That uh, apparently uh, our policies and the documents that are discussed in the national security strategy document all sound like they were written in Russia. I mean, in the sense that they're not Russian, but some elements of it favor a Russian position on, for example, NATO expansion and a bunch of other stuff. And so it's just odd. And I hopefully people know this, that you know. Our government is doing things that in our lifetimes we sort of didn't expect. All that sort of anti-Soviet, anti-communism is now kind of weirdly pro-Russian. And I don't think that necessarily fits so well in the big picture. But anyway, so there's that. Um, uh, Other things happen. Other things happen. Um, but I am too far too prolix on these matters. We're in a scheduling period, and I hope that
Ooh.
we can talk about schedules now. John is back. Professor John is back, and we are going to get Night Gallery, as well as I think Poker Face is going to be on tonight after our yammering here. So in 45 minutes or so, there'll be Night Gallery. I don't know if John is here to talk about that. John, are you here to talk about that?
I am here. Yes. Well, I'm going to make up for my absence by doing a double feature tonight on Night Gallery.
Alrighty then.
The first episode is called Big Surprise, and it stars John Carradine
Ooh.
and Vincent Van Patten. Yes. We're going to also see an episode called The Painted Mirror, which stars Zsa Zsa Gabor and Arthur O'Connell.
Darling.
So yeah, uh, should be fun.
Yes, looking forward to it. I don't know if Travis is here to talk about Poker Face, but we will get Poker Face an episode of that tonight as well, which is really fun. Um, if we move to Saturday, I think if Susanna is here, I think she's going to be showing something um, very specific and really a wonderful film on Saturday night.
Thank
Susanna?
you, Anne. Yes, I'll be showing Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution from 1957. It is an all-star cast. It is highly decorated with awards and Oscar nominations, and it's directed by the great Billy Wilder. So there you go.
Fun. That will be fun. At 7 p.m. on Saturday. On Sunday, I guess we're going to get the return of Star Trek, Next Generation, right,
Yeah,
John, at 5 p.m.
that is also correct. Yes, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. This episode is called The Vengeance Factor, and we have a group of marauders attacking, excuse me, attacking Federation outposts or colonies or something, and just stealing stuff. And uh, so are investigating that, and then they run into some kind of a blood feud that's been going on
Mhm.
between two different groups. So it's a
Indeed.
mystery. Yes.
Yeah, it's a very good plot. I mean, you sort of, well, anyway, it has red herrings and MacGuffins and those kind of things in it, so it's quite interesting.
Yes. I find MacGuffins are not as tasty as red herrings.
Indeed. Uh, Lane is not with us today, but he will be with us on Sunday because Steve Cropper just died. He died a couple days ago. Those of you who don't know who Steve Cropper is, a guitarist, Booker T and the MGs, Stax Volt. He's in a tremendous number of bands. And so Lane is going to do a thing on that after Star Trek Next Generation next on Sunday. So that starts at 7 and goes on until the evening. Wednesdays are I do an office hours that we're currently doing chapters on the concept of subsumption, which now sounds a little boring, but actually it's quite interesting and quite cosmological more recently. But anyway, so there's that. I do that at 6 p.m. on Wednesdays. I'm trying to remember, we have the Red Hour on Tuesdays at 6 or 7 o'clock, and 7 o'clock actually. And I'm not sure what they're reading this particular week.
I'm not sure
Um,
either. I'm still looking for
oh,
something.
this past week, if you're at all interested, Doris Lessing was the author, as I recall. I think Nate is doing something on Mondays, right? But I can't remember what it is. Is Nate here to talk about that? No, I don't think so.
Malcolm Harris.
Oh,
Book
yes, right. He's reading from
Palo Alto.
Palo Alto on
Yes.
Palo Alto. It's really an interesting book. I mean, it does a history of California, and it's just spun a slightly different way than you would look at a standard history of California. And being a Californian, it is quite interesting to sort of look at because there's a kind of history that you get when if you grow up in California, is sort of that civic stuff. You should know civic stuff about California history, and if you don't pay attention too much, you sort of forget that there was genocide, ethnic cleansing, all kinds of horrible things that are part of that. Eugenics. It's just amazing that are part of the colonial and sort of pre-capitalist history of California. And, there are things that you sort of remember sort of vaguely, but then when you actually see the kind of narrative that Harris puts together, you can see how really awful, like John Sutter was an awful person, really an awful person. Um, and yet we lionize Sutter's Mill and the discovery of gold and blah blah blah. You sort of see now, though, that it was kind of medieval and exploitative in that particular sense. I mean, and there are really interesting stories, and so that this particular book has that kind of a different spin on California history. Not unlike Mike Davis, for example, in terms of Southern California. So this is more about Northern California and about indigenous peoples and a whole bunch of other things, and that's all fun and fun. So that's coming up. That's on Mondays, and Nate's reading from that. I'm not sure how far along they are, but we have the text available to us so that people can read along with that. So that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's covered. I can't remember what we're doing Thursday. Can someone help me with that?
On Monday, I'm also doing a photo log from my trip over the past year. So I started.
Yes.
I believe I'll start at 6 p.m. if people will show up. Otherwise,
Excellent.
it's 9 p.m. So I started.
I love the photos.
Test run this.
Love
one.
Yep. It's so many fun photos and those kind of histories. And I forgot to mention at 2 p.m. on Sunday is our we're going to show within our little group here within the Autonomous Collective class, the meetings of Class Unity, which is a sort of quasi subgroup of the Democratic Socialists, and they're doing a class. This will be the second of, I think, 4 or 5 meetings on oligarchy, and the readings are really good. They're really good readings. If you don't have a good handle on what American or global oligarchy looks like, the readings are really good, and some of the folks are the kind of group that shows up for these Zoom things are quite learned in their sense. In that sense, it's a mix of people from philosophy, social science, and a bunch of other fields. So that's fun. I think that gets us to the end of our discussion on scheduling.
Shall I review the meal? I hope this looks a lot better than the cat vomit, although it might be coming close.
Looks good.
So we've got stewed rose cocoa beans, sort of kind of like pinto bean or brown bean mash with tempered cumin, coriander, and gochujang chili from Korea. Brought back some chili from Korea. Got some little baby marrow squash. The English call them marrow. They're the light green zucchinis. got a little boat of tomato and shallot and serrano chili, I believe. Oh no, these are Turkish chili. I can't remember the name of them. Then we got our beloved cornmeal dumpling, the steamed potato dumpling with maize flour. And then I made a
Nice.
little oil and cilantro oil. Yeah.
Nice. I'm hungry.
Which directions does it go? It's like
Yum.
cool.
Now I'm hungry again. Damn it. Where are we in terms of time?
The end, I believe.
We're at the end. There are about 4 minutes to the top of the hour, and in 30 minutes there's going to be night gallery, and we'll try and do better next week. Needless to say.
See ya.